Hello and welcome to this complete guide to the Cambridge C1 Advanced Exam. If you're interested in taking this test, you probably have lots of questions about it. Well, the good news for you is that we're here to answer all of those questions and probably some other ones that you hadn't even thought of yet. So if you give us 20 minutes of your time, we'll give you an expert breakdown of everything you need to know about this exam. The first question people generally ask is, why do I need this qualification? What can it do for me? And that's a good question. The answer depends on you and your goals. Do you want to continue your education at a university abroad? Do you want to work and get promoted in a big international company? Or perhaps you want to travel the world and feel confident in speaking the global language. Well, if you have the Cambridge Advanced, you have the key to opening the door to all of these ambitions. So can a language exam really do all that? The short answer is yes. Yes, it can. Preparing for the C1 Advanced Exam helps you develop the knowledge and skills you need to make the most of studying, working, and living in English-speaking countries. The test is designed to show your ability to use English in a range of different ways and in a variety of real-life situations. And, most importantly, it is accepted by more than 9,000 universities, employers, and government departments all over the world as an indication that you have a high level of skill in the English language. You might be asking yourself, what are these skills that the examiner assesses? Well, in the test, there are the 4 traditional skills. So, the 2 productive ones, writing and speaking, and the 2 receptive ones, reading and listening, as well as use of English, which tests how well you can control vocabulary and grammar. Reading and use of English are in one paper, which means the exam has 4 papers in total. Each one is equally important. Later in the video, we'll break down each paper for you, and we'll also give you some tips on how to do well in each one, so you don't want to miss that. And if you want to take a deep dive into the contents of each paper, I strongly suggest you watch the next video. But for now, back to the structure of the exam and how long it takes. So the reading and use of English paper takes 1.5 hours, which is the same as the writing. The listening takes approximately 40 minutes and the speaking just 15. So you can see in total the exam lasts for just under 4 hours. That's a long time, but you've also got a lot to get through, which is why planning and managing your time when you're sitting the exam is very important. In the next video, we'll talk more about the different parts of the test and roughly how much time you should spend on each one. And from there, you'll need to experiment on your own or with your teacher to figure out a strategy that works for you. A common question which I often get asked is whether the papers are all on the same day. So the reading and use of English, the writing and the listening must be taken together on the same day. There are breaks between the papers, so you can have a snack or go to the bathroom. Once you've booked your test, your exam centre will send you a schedule for exam day, so you'll be able to see exactly what time each paper starts and ends and how much time you have in between. The speaking test is the only paper which usually happens on a different day, but not always. So again, please do check with your exam centre to confirm the date of your speaking test. By now, I hope you've got a good idea of the scope of the exam, so you'll probably want to know how to prepare for it, right? Well, my first bit of advice is that even if you are a confident C1 student, I'd still suggest doing some kind of exam preparation course. I've seen strong candidates fail because they didn't understand the format of the exam or they didn't get the task instructions. So if you're serious about the test, then prepare seriously for it. Next, practice all 4 skills in your preparation course as well as in your self-studies. So don't prioritize one skill over the rest. Then, you might not be a big fan of grammar, but I'll tell you that it comes up in every part of the exam. So it's definitely worth investing some time in revising what you've learned before and learning additional tenses and structures that are appropriate for C1. You also need to study things like collocations, so that's words which often go together, idioms, phrasal verbs, dependent prepositions, word families, affixes, things like that. And remember, there isn't a word list for this exam, which is why it's important to expose yourself to as much English as you can. So in books, TV series, podcasts, online news, etc., to build and improve your vocabulary organically. And finally, do as many practice tests as you can. They'll help you to improve every aspect of your language ability and give you a good taste of what to expect on exam day. Are you curious what each of these papers looks like? Well, let's see. As you now know, Paper 1 contains the reading and the use of English. There are 5 sections that focus on your reading skills. They are Part 1, Part 5, Part 6, Part 7, and Part 8. Each of these parts tests you in different ways, and we'll go over all of that in the next video. If you look at these 5 parts as a whole, there are 50 marks available. If you get 43 out of 50, that equates to a C2 pass. If you get 32 out of 50, that equates to a pass at C1 level. So we've talked about the reading side of the exam paper. What about use of English? There are 3 sections which focus on use of English. There's Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4. We'll look at these in much more detail in the next video. Regarding the marking, there are 28 marks available in these 3 sections. Getting 23 out of 28 equates to a C2 pass, and getting 16 out of 28 equates to a C1 pass. Exam trainers like myself often get asked for any tips which could help candidates in the exam. So here are my top tips for you. First of all, the reading and use of English paper contains a wide range of texts. So try reading as many different types of texts in English as you can. For instance, read news and magazine articles, biographies, novels, or short stories, things like that. When you're preparing for the exam, keep a notebook and write down new words which you come across. If you can, don't just jot down the word, but write down the whole word family. So for example, if you find the word stable, which is the adjective, also write the opposite, unstable. The noun stability, with the prefix instability, or the verb to stabilize, and so on. You could use this to revise or test yourself later. As I mentioned before, when you do practice tests, it's really important that you stick to the time limits. This will help you prepare for the real exam, when you will have limited time to complete the tasks and fill in the answer sheet. Of course, if you have extra time at the end of the test, you can always go back and look at a task again. In this paper, you can do the tasks in any order. so you might want to start with the questions which you find easier. Please just be careful that you write your answers in the correct order on the answer sheet. And finally, when it comes to use of English tasks, so those are parts 2 to 4, it's often the case that you either know the answer or you don't. So don't waste too much time trying to think of one answer, because you might run out of time to answer other questions which potentially have more marks for you to gain. So do I have anything else to tell you? Well, yes, actually, I do. Firstly, don't use pen on the answer sheet. Answers written in pen can't be read by the marking machine. So that means if you write an answer in pen, you get 0 points for that answer. Instead, use a pencil, which also you can easily use to change your answers. And secondly, give yourself enough time to transfer your answers to the answer sheet, and don't wait until the end of the paper. It's best to copy your answers for each part to the answer sheet as you finish that part. You don't get any extra time at the end of the test to do it. By now, hopefully, you see the benefits of the exam. You have a better idea of what to expect in the exam. So the next question is whether you should take the exam on paper or on a computer. The content of the exams is the same. The scoring is the same, and the final certificate is also the same. The only real difference is your test day experience. So let's take a quick look at the advantages and disadvantages of each. The first thing to think about is the audio. In the paper-based test, the audio is played from a CD player, and some of my students complained that the audio quality in the listening test was quite bad, or they couldn't hear it because the volume was too low, or there were other sounds in the exam room. In the computer-based test, you might be able to wear a headset, which can block some of that noise, so you get better sound quality and adjustable volume. But please do check your exam center, because different centers have different rules about using headphones. In the paper-based test, you'll be able to use highlighters in the reading and use of English test. So you can underline things, you can make notes to yourself, and this can be really helpful. There is a highlight function on the computer test, but again, my students complained that it isn't very user-friendly. On the other hand, in the computer-based version, you'll be able to edit your essays and other writing tasks. This will make your writing much neater, as your piece of paper won't be full of crossed-out text and arrows. In the paper-based test, there will be a clock on the wall, but it's definitely a good idea to wear a watch just in case you can't see it. If you do the computer-based test, then you'll have on-screen timers which show you exactly how much time you've got left, and this is great. In the writing test, the computer version shows you your word count, which is definitely a big advantage over the paper-based one where you'd have to count the words manually. A deciding factor for many people is that you'll get your results much faster if you do the computer-based test. People generally don't want to wait too long to see if they have passed their exam or not. We'll look at the topic of results later on in the video, so please do stick around for that. At the end of the day, it's really just a question of your preferences. If you like physically highlighting and underlining keywords on paper, or you're used to doing your written papers by hand, then you should probably go for the paper-based test. But if you're a fast typist and you're used to writing emails, then it makes sense to do the computer-based test. It's really your call.